Hi and welcome to another one of the Tech Geeks videos. Today I'm going to be talking about setting up a home mesh system. We're going to actually do this with a product from Cudy. These are available in 3 packs. This is a single one, but you can add more and more. And I'll explain a little bit more about what we do with mesh and what mesh is as we go along. This is the M3000, so it's a wireless 6 device, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So what is the idea of mesh? In this instance, the idea of mesh is to have a single network name, wireless network name, the Tech Geeks, for example, and to have multiple wireless access points publish that same name, but that they're actually joined together without wires. So in this scenario for mesh, one of these devices is going to be connected to our router or our internet connection, and then maybe we're going to have this in my living room where the internet connection comes in. And then this one is going to be, another one of these is going to be put down in the kids' rumpus room area. And all this is going to have is power. This one is going to wirelessly connect to this one and rebroadcast that same network. Why do we want to do that? Well, wireless in a simplistic term is about density, not distance. If I have one access point in my living room and I connect, say, my mobile phone to it, my mobile phone's fine, and as I walk further away from it, obviously my connection speed drops. That's logical, right? But the problem with today's technology still, and wireless 7 is starting to change some of this, but actually not only does the speed drop for my mobile phone, but it actually drops for everybody else's device connected to this as well, because this device can't keep a track of all the different speeds for every device connected. So as a result, I could be down the end of the garden with a very poor internet connection, and somebody else in my living room could be struggling to watch Netflix when they're connected right by this. So when we talk about wireless being about density, not distance, we want to get multiple of these spread through my property, through inside the house, so that my devices are never too far away from them. So part of our thing is to probably figure out how many devices we have. A 3-pack like we're working with today is probably a great point to start for an average sized house, especially if it's a 2-story, so that you maybe got one upstairs, one where your internet connection comes in, and one towards the other end of the house. The key, we're just talking about concept at the moment. If you have dead spaces in your house and you're wanting to get mesh to help fix that problem, you don't want to put this in the dead spot. This needs to be halfway between where you have a good Wi-Fi signal and where you don't, so that it can connect to the master device really well and have a strong signal, but then itself can broadcast a new strong signal to that dead space. So actually the setup of this is really super simple. And later on in this video, I'm going to show you the performance that you can get from these devices. We're going to connect this up to a 10 gig connection. So we'll be able to see the maximum that these devices perform at. There are some other ones. There are some slower versions of these. So our idea really is to always get a device that runs probably a couple of times faster than our internet connection. For each mesh that we go through, we're going to probably lose about half of its performance. So this is an AX3000 device. I said I'd talk about that quickly. AX3000 means wireless 6. It means its total throughput is about 3,000 megabits a second, so maybe roughly 3 gigabits a second. We'll just use those terms to make it simple. We then have 2 wireless frequencies, the 2.4 gigahertz, which is often now where we find all our smart devices. Often a lot of our CCTV cameras, our smart light bulbs and those type of things. They connect over a longer distance, but at slower speeds. So with an AX3000, we're going to have a maximum connection speed of about 600 megabits a second. And in real terms, that's going to probably give you 300 or 400 megabits a second of actual network throughput. We then have the wireless 5 gigahertz frequency, which can do a faster speed. And on these devices, an AX3000 could do up to 2.4 gigabits a second. So theoretically, 2,400 megabits a second. Lots of numbers. Hopefully you get some of the idea from that. What am I going to expect from that? Well, I'm going to expect probably somewhere around about 1.5, 1.6 gigabits a second of true connectivity. Now that's probably a lot faster than your internet connection. But what we just have to bear in mind, that's our master unit connected to our internet. When we jump through to this unit will really, because it's having to listen and rebroadcast, in rough terms, will be running at about half the speed of this. So at a 5 gigahertz frequency, if we start off with 2.4 over here, we're going to drop down to about 1.2 over here. And if we then jump through to a third device, so we've looped them through, then this one's going to be doing about 600 at the end. So really what we're trying to do is we're going to get that AX number faster, maybe by 2 times than your actual internet. So if your internet's 200 megasecond, this is going to run probably 5 or 6 times faster, even if you hopped through several of these. Hopefully that makes some level of sense. Do reach out to us, put things in the comments if you're not quite sure. I'm more than happy to explain it a little bit more. But that's why probably taking an AX3000 is a great option. If you see ones with AC at the front, that means that they don't support wireless 6. So they generally support slower speeds, which again could be okay for you if you don't have a fast internet connection and will save some of your budget, but you'll find your performance is a little bit less. We're going to show the performance review for an AC 1200 for the Cudy home mesh as well at the end of this video, so you can see how both compare. So a quick rundown for us. We are going to get these 3 items in a box. We are going to get 3 power packs to go with them, and we're going to get 3 Ethernet cables to go with them. We'll get a whole bunch of instruction guides as well. So that's our starting point for the actual equipment. And really what we now want to get onto is actually setting up the first device, our first mesh device, and this is the one that's going to be connected to the internet. So let's just have a look at this first so you can see. On these devices, we've actually got a 2.5 gigabit a second Ethernet port that will connect to maybe our fiber to the property or our current router. Even though that's 2.5, that will also support 1 gig a second as well, so you can support slower speed devices. Do remember that each one of these also has the same on the bottom. So in another room where we've wirelessly joined these together, we could actually plug in a smart TV or something like that directly to it. And it will wirelessly connect back to our base unit and give internet in that location. So we're going to be plugging, like I said, our internet into here, our power into here, and then we're going to start configuring it using the app. So just off the screen, I've got my power board. So let's plug in my power there, and into the bottom of the device, we are going to plug in our power. You can see that this is starting to start up. I think you can probably see it's got a red light in there. I have, like I said, an internet connection. This is this cable coming from my router, and I'm going to plug this directly here into the bottom of this device. And now let it boot up. Okay, so we're just letting our device boot. This takes about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe doesn't even take that. We'll see that go white in a few minutes because I've already got my internet connection here. Now, obviously, you may have a different type of router. You may even have Starlink. If you've got Starlink Generation 3 and above, you should have an Ethernet port. You can plug it directly into there. I probably wouldn't put my Starlink into pass-through mode. I'd probably just leave it here as it is and maybe change the name of my Starlink wireless. If I've got fiber to the property, so I've actually got an NBN box on the wall, we're here in Australia where I'm recording this, or you have your internet connected that way, then you can again connect in this. If you've got an FC connection, you might have a small black NBN box if you're here in Australia, or a different conversion box for your country, then again you should be able to plug Ethernet in. The only place this is not going to work, obviously if you only got 4G as an option, there is a 4G model of this, or you've got a DSL connection, then you probably will need a router in front of it. As you can see, probably not. Just see if we can gather that. Don't think we can. It's actually gone a bluey white color just down here. It's flooded by the lights, but now it is actually in the booted stage and ready for us to configure it. I'll actually just put it that way up. So it's now really time to head on over to our phone and download the app. Okay, so we can start up the app and it will depend on how you got this up. I've set up some in here already, so you will actually see the one that's up here. But the first thing that we want to do, and I'll have to put my glasses on to make sure I can see this, is on the bottom of the device, we actually have a Wi-Fi name and password that we can use as a default to get into this. If you do ever set this up and it goes wrong for you, you can just factory reset it using the reset hole on the bottom for about 10 seconds, and then you'll be able to actually log back in. So once you have started this up, you need to go into settings, and from settings, you need to be able to join the Wi-Fi that you'll show in your name. It'll probably have Cudy in the start of it. If you're going to join the Wi-Fi, and then you're going to put in the number that it gave you for this unit. So 183.256. 5607. Hopefully I've put the numbers in right. And if that's gone in correct, no, you can see that I put in my numbers wrong. So we just got our fat fingers causing us some possible. All right, let's try and join it this time. So we've now joined the Wi-Fi network, and that is probably the most difficult part of setting this up. So we can now spin back to our app, and we can see that our device is now already ready to be adopted, if you like. So we can click on the device at the top, and it wants us to create a password. So we're just going to put the Tech Geeks. This is not your Wi-Fi password. This is your password for getting into the unit and configuring it. So I'm going to choose Done. And now we're going to walk through the different options. In this instance, this is going to be our main router. So our main router is going to control the whole network, and later on we're going to add a couple of extra of these access points to it. We do have some options in here to do it as a wireless extender if you wanted to join another wireless network that already existed and repeated it. That does have some impact, so I would probably suggest that you stick in this instance with the router and set it up with other Cudy devices to make it easier. Time zone's fine, don't really need to do anything there. DHCP, is this how it's going to give out or get its IP address? I can change the host name if I want. This is what it would be seen as in your network. So you might change that to router or something if you wanted to. Then it's very interesting in this section. In this section, you can't merge both of the Wi-Fi networks together. It does work them individually, but you may decide that you want them to work as one, and I'll explain that maybe a little bit in a moment. So in my instance, I'm actually just going to save this as the same as what was on the bottom, just to make things easier as we walk through the config, and I'll show you how to change it again in a minute. So we're then going to hit apply, and it's just going to warn us that it's now going to restart the device. You might find you drop off on the Wi-Fi for a moment because it's now setting this up, if you like, properly. And it says I can't connect to the device. So I'm going to go back to my settings, and I'm just going to wait for my Cudy wireless network to actually come back. And then we should be ready to go. We can see it's there, and we should be joined hopefully again now. Just give this a moment to catch up. There we go. So all of our settings should have been applied, I believe, to the device. All right, so at this point, essentially, we've got this going. We've used the default settings on the bottom. We've got two Wi-Fi connections running. And if I was to just quickly spin into an app called iPerf, I can just do a very quick speed test of what's happening here. So here we go in iPerf. Let me just do a speed test. All right, not the world's greatest speed at this point in time, but my device is probably not quite sure what to actually join for the best performance. So let's go back to our application and have a look. In this instance, what I would tend to do is probably join both of these networks into one. Now, for some people, they do want to set this up as two separate networks. Maybe you just want your low value items, the smart lights and stuff like that, to not congest the rest of your network. And so as a result, you want to keep them separate. In my instance, I find it a lot easier to have it as one wireless network. Why? Because the devices that are moving around will then check and use the frequency that's best for them. So all I'm going to do is just click the button at the top. And just for the sake of this, I'm actually going to rename this. I'm first going to copy my password so I can remember what I'm going to join in a moment. All right, but I'm actually going to name this TTG All right, so this is now going to restart itself, and it's going to restart with the new wireless name that I've created, and it'll be simultaneously running in the 2.5 and 5 gigahertz range all at the same time, allowing my device to choose what it should connect to. So we're just going to wait for that new Wi-Fi network to appear in a moment that we call TTG 3000. And sometimes it does just take a minute once those changes have happened. So we can see now that TTG 3000 has arrived. I'm just going to paste my password in and let it join the network. And I just want to show you what I've done in increasing the speed at this point in time. So if I now start my connection, I'm now running at 1.4 gigabits a second because my device has now been able to connect to a faster speed network, the 5 gigahertz, where it can have a greater throughput because this device also supports wireless 6 and therefore a faster speed. So at the basic entry point, we now have an access point that works. The devices can choose the fastest speed, and if you had a really good internet connection, you could get up to 2.4 gigabits a second, potentially, probably not a lot more faster than my real speed when it comes to the device. Now let's move on and add some extra repeaters, if you like, or these mesh devices to extend the Wi-Fi. Okay, so we have set up our first device. We've combined it to 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Maybe we'll look at some of the other settings in a minute, but really for most people, that is the starting point. That's all you really wanted. You wanted this for Wi-Fi. This now device is connected to your router. So if you've got a current router in place that does Wi-Fi, I would suggest you either, if you have the option, turn that Wi-Fi off, or maybe just change it to another name so that it doesn't confuse you going forward. Now what we want to do is we want to expand our network so that we can now put these devices in other places in our property, inside our house. I keep saying property, and I want to make sure that people don't hear what I'm saying and go, oh, I'm going to put this in a different location, outside, or in another building. That is entirely possible in some instances. You can try it, but wireless doesn't travel well through very dense materials. So concrete, dense fibrous wood, bluestone. Another example is metal. Metal actually converts wireless to sound. And so we'll often find that actually you would need a bridge to do that. But if you have small outbuildings, maybe you try what I do now and take one of these and see whether it works. You may find you get some distance coverage from it. But we're just concentrating really of what you're using these for inside your house and extending Wi-Fi inside your house. You could then do a bridge out to another building and add another one of these in to give you seamless Wi-Fi. And we've got some other videos about that on our YouTube channel, but we're just concentrating on inside your house right now. So let's take one of these. I've been using these before, so we're just going to do a quick factory reset on it as well. I'll just put this one back here out of the way. So I'm going to go and get another mains power pack from the kit, plug it into my power board over here, just off the screen, and we're going to power this up. So again, we're just going to look for this to start up. I'm going to then factory reset it, just so that you've seen the sequence that we go through to factory reset. I do want to wait till this light goes solid. I don't really want to, oh, you probably, sorry, you can't see that. I do want to wait till this light goes solid. I don't really want to do a factory reset when it is still booting. I have a option or chance then of damaging the firmware, the operating system. So I really want to make sure that this is gone solid. And then I can actually factory reset. So we can see that that's gone solid. So I'm just going to actually put a pin in the back here. I'm just going to hold that probably for about 10 seconds. If I turn that over, I think you'll be able to see it's flashing there on the front. I like to do this for about 10 seconds. All right, and that is now going to boot back up again. So once that has booted, we actually can go back into our app. And obviously, just a quick review of what we can see here. We can see some of the bits and pieces that are going on. We can turn the LED display on and off if we want to from here. We can set up a guest network. We can see which devices are connected. We've also got options to be able to block those devices. As you can see, we can keep them at the top. We can change the name. We can turn off internet access for them if we wanted to. We've got a whole load of other options in the Wi-Fi settings, which is where we made all our updates before. We can also make some quite advanced changes in here. For instance, channel width. This is auto, but if you wanted the fastest speed, you would bring this down to, say, 160 at the bottom. That's the fastest joining channels. You will reduce the distance you can go away from the device with the best speed. So often it's best to leave it at auto, and it will try and give you the best results. And you can control that for both frequencies, which is really, really neat. Our LAN settings in here, we can change the IP range that's being given out to all of the devices. This is also great. It doesn't start on generally an IP range that a lot of other routers are on. So out the box, this should work pretty well for you as well. And you've got the option there to manually reboot it. We've got more options, quite a significant lot of options we can go through, or we can get at them through this way round. You'll see that I had an option earlier on there to bind this to my Cudy account. You can have an online account and then bind this device to it. And once it's joined there, then you can actually remote manage it. You can use this app. So as long as your base unit, this one here, is connected to the internet, got internet access, you can actually change those settings remotely. You don't have to be in the same building, which is pretty good. You just need to have an internet connection. So we can see again that it's actually connected and the speeds that are going through. So all we're really interested in is our mesh network at the top here. And we really want to choose the other option to choose add. And this is now going to scan to see whether it can see any other devices around this main unit. So you want to set these all up right close by each other. And you can see it's found another unit. And I can now just choose the add option. You can see the lights are now starting to flash on both the devices as they start to synchronize themselves up. And we could do the same in a moment if we wanted to with the third device. It does take a couple of minutes to push the settings between the two of them. And once that's actually done, you would then be able to take this device and you would actually be able to put it in the next part of your building, and these would wirelessly connect to each other. Remember, you have those Ethernet ports then on the bottom as well, which you can hardwire devices into in that next building. So we're just going to let those finish up, and I'm actually just going to go back here and just see whether it has actually finished adding those devices. It does take a little while to finish joining them together, and for some reason it didn't seem to have done it that time round. So I'm just going to be patient, a little bit more patient this time, and let's see that join up, and I'll just carry on the video in a moment once we've completed that join. So it's now starting up. What you can actually see on our app, the app has said that it has now connected successfully, and it tells you about 3 different colors. We can have a solid white blue connected with good signal, flash when it has a bad signal, and anything else means it's connected or disconnected. So you're really going to see what's actually happening. We don't want to have red or any other colors running with that. So an interesting thing as well is you can join types of these together that are different. So I've actually got an AC 1200. So this is just a Wi-Fi 5 device. Can't even hold it in the right place. A Wi-Fi 5 device. But this will actually still mesh with it as well. This runs a lot slower. This is only an AC 1200. So we'll only do 1200 megabits a second, whereas if you remember these did 3000. But we can still mesh it into the same setup. So while I've got another one here, I think I've just got this one starting up. I'm just going to factory default this one here because, as I said, I've been using this for tests previously. Hopefully you can see that light is flashing. I'm just going to hold that in for 10 seconds. Let that one start up. But while that one's finding its home, I'm just going to reach over here and we'll plug in this. The idea, we want to get as many of these devices evenly spread out through our property to give us the best Wi-Fi coverage. And so start with 2 or 3, buy a 3-pack, and then build it on from there. The same principle. It doesn't really matter whether you're using Cudy, maybe using TP-Link, using some other vendors that are out there. The same process works. You can generally mix and match them together. But the whole idea is that we want to get great Wi-Fi coverage across the inside of our property. So we want more of these than less of them. Right, so the third one is already starting up. This is a slower one, so I'm just waiting for those lights to go solid so I can factory default it. But our one over here is actually in the red state. So I can now set off the scan on this one, see if it can actually locate it. It's possible that it might locate our slower one as well, but we'll just have a little look and see what happens. So I'm just going to reboot while we're waiting, or reset while I'm waiting, the AC1200 model. Now I think it looks here highly likely that I didn't spend quite a long enough time resetting this device. So let's just do that again. All right, so let's let those ones boot up. Let's just see what we can get with these all now seeking each other out. We've obviously got quite a lot of Wi-Fi in a small space here. All right, so I'm going to try something different because I think I've got too many of these devices next to each other that it can't work out what it's joined to and what it's not. So I'm just going to unplug this one here that we'd already meshed up, and I'll unplug our AC1200 as well. And so there we go. So if you're going to set this up, you need to really set up one at a time by the looks of it. So let's add in this one here. And once that's set up, we'll turn that one off, because obviously you then take that out to your other location to make it work. I think all the Wi-Fi signals just so close to each other was what was causing a problem. So it does take a little bit of time. You can see this one's flashing to say that it's actually working. This is the one, the master unit. It does take a little while for these devices, and you can actually now see that, interestingly enough, it's actually not quite sure which devices are around, because it does seem to see that it saw our other device as well. So we're just going to concentrate on our M3000, which is this one here, and we'll let that one, it does seem to be a little bit confused between all of the devices that it can now see, and I think I've just put it into a slight spin. So let's just let this go through for a moment. Right, so really obviously got that into a little bit of a panic, I think. So just going to get it to join the M3000, which is the only one that's actually powered on, this one here. And let's see if we can just concentrate on getting it to have that one connected correctly. It took about 3 or 4 minutes before, so you do need to just be patient as this goes through for that final bit of setup. But it does look like you just need to do one at a time. So do the one, add it, turn it off, add the next one. Seems to be the most effective way to make it work. All right, so after a couple of minutes, you'll actually see just here, this is actually flashing red and blue-white. So it's actually starting the final configuration process. Our master unit here has actually stopped. You can only just see that there, stopped flashing, has gone a solid color. So we're really just waiting for our final device to link up. Both devices are now back to pairing, and hopefully in a moment, those will be completely added together. Okay, so that took about 3 minutes, and I've now got it onto the screen there showing that it's connected. I don't think I can probably show you, but I've got a solid bluey white light on there. So I can now finish that, and I've now got those, should have those 2 extra mesh points. One of them isn't showing, but if I was to power this one up that we joined first, this would then show up in there. So what I'm now going to do is turn the power off onto this one. Simple as that. And we're just going to power up our slower speed one just to show that we can mix and match, and we can join this up to have 4 of those. So we're just going to let that boot, and I'm just going to run it on here while it's booting. But it looks like you just need to do one device at a time to actually make that work. So we just let this start up. We can see that we're still on our red flashing light here. We're waiting for this to just finally boot and go solid, and hopefully our master unit here will then start its flashing sequence of the light down here, and that should then hopefully start looking for this device. So it definitely is with this setup, with these Cudys, that you do need to be a little bit patient. It's taken about 3 minutes from boot for this one to now be visible in the app. So I'm now going to set it off pairing. Like previously, lights are flashing. We know that something's working on this side. We're waiting for these to start in the pairing mode and see some flashing happening over here. And then once that's joined up, then I've shown you how we can mix and match. And we actually then have a total of 4 devices connected together that we can spread out through the property. But I will then show you some speeds that we get from this. and how the mesh actually can improve the performance for you. This device is actually paired fairly quickly by the looks of it. It's already in the pairing sequence already. And hopefully before long on the app here, we're actually going to see the completion of that when it gives us the message on the screen to say that it has actually connected it into the whole mesh setup. And like I said, we can then take these to their final resting places, put the power in, and see what their connectivity is like in each location. So we can see it's now successfully added, can now choose finish. What I could do now if I want to, just to show you that everything does work, if I put the power back into all of our the other 2 missing units, they will actually all now power up, and hopefully then basically in our mesh network section of the app, we'll actually show all of the 4 devices once they have started up. They're all still in that boot sequence there at the moment. So our master one in the middle, the others around the outside, and hopefully those will start up really quickly. We've got some options there just to have a look at. The main device tells it its running time, changing its name if we want to. I might just call this master AP. Right, so the other devices are starting up now. Hopefully they'll all work even though they are fairly close to each other. And hopefully then will appear in the screen in a few moments to show that they have actually meshed. We can see obviously down here our 4 clients. Our 4 clients are actually all of our different mesh devices, and we can see the speeds that's running between them. And we can obviously change the device name, so you might decide to call one of them bedroom, one of them living room, whatever you'd like to do after that. So I think our devices are now slowly coming online. There we've got the main one, we've got 2 of the others online there as well, and hopefully then the last one is almost booted up, I can see, and that should show in here. So if I was to now go in and do what we talked about, and we say maybe take one of this next one here and just say, well, this one we're actually going to change its name. We're going to call this living room. This, you maybe put a label on it. This is then going to help you spot which ones are which as you actually go through the whole moving these around setup. So there we have basically our 3 devices, our master device running as well. One of our devices being a little bit slow back here. This one here is still in its boot up sequence, but it won't be very long. It's probably just a bit overwarmed by all of these living next to each other, but shouldn't be very long, and then that will actually be meshed. So that is how we get all of those bits working. Now I can actually show you some of the performance that we get and what they maybe look like once you put them out into a couple of locations as well. Okay, so what we're going to try and do is we've got our 1 unit here. We're going to try and do some speed tests. Right here next to the access point, you can see the type of speed that I'm getting, which is really good and what I would expect to. I'm now going to head on over through 1 concrete wall, and that will then give us a speed test there, which is about 5 meters away. Then going to go another 5 meters, which will give us 2 more concrete walls, and then I'm going to go another 5 meters, which should give us another concrete wall. And we'll be able to test the speeds. The idea then, we're going to come back and we're going to put another mesh unit part the way along the way, and you're going to see how much difference it makes to our throughput. So let's head on over to this first stop. So I'll just leave the test running while we walk round. I'm now in line with the Cudy mesh point, 5 meters away from it through a single Besser brick concrete filled wall. And you can see that we've dropped off about 300 or 400 megabits a second, but we're still getting close to that gig. So it's still a good performance at this point. But let's head on to the next location. So 10 meters with 3 concrete walls. And let's run the test again. You can see we have dropped off quite significantly. We're sitting there maybe a maximum about 200, 250 megabits a second. And this is probably the place that I would be comfortable to go no further without putting another mesh point in. But let's push it a little bit further and let's take it to 4 concrete walls and at about 15 meters.
So you can see here our speed does fluctuate quite a lot. Comes down there probably as low as about 10 megabits a second as it just adjusts to me standing in the right location. This was probably fairly good for just web browsing, maybe some cameras there, but it's probably at the extreme distance, 15 meters with 4 concrete walls.
Okay, so that was our test just from this. What we're now going to do is we're going to take one of these other mesh units and we're going to put it halfway along that route. So we're going to put it in the first room. It's going to be about 7 meters away through one concrete wall. And then we'll be able to see what type of performance we get as our device moves through again. And you'll actually see why spreading these out gives us the best usability. So obviously we've done this with one unit and we could get the overall speed from that. What we're now going to do is take one of the other mesh units and we're going to put it at that middle stage, which was through 2 concrete walls at about 10 meters, probably about roughly where it could be. I don't have a PowerPoint any better between the other walls. Ideally, maybe just one wall or 2 walls would have been better. But the way the house is built, I don't have a power because it actually goes through a toilet area. So I'm going to actually put this on the other side of those 3 concrete walls and allow these two to talk to each other wirelessly. When I then use my phone will be connecting to the closest mesh point and we should actually get a better performance. And then when we do the outside test again, we should get better again. So let's take one of those units and go and plug that in.
So what you can see is I've placed this on top of the fireplace. It is at that point of about 10 meters with 3 concrete walls, and you can see that it's got a white indicator light on there showing that we've got good signal strength meshed to the other device. So let's do a speed test. Again, 10 meters, 3 concrete walls, but because we've got this mesh point, we're actually now connecting to this closest mesh point, which is then actually connected and repeating the one right back 10 meters ago. And therefore we get this much faster speed, almost twice the speed at this location that we had before. So now what we can do is we can actually go on outside and go to my 4th concrete wall width at about 15 meters, and we can see where before we were only getting about 10 megabits a second, we should actually find we're going to get substantially more. And again, you can see that we've got 300 or so megabits a second, where previously we were only getting between 10 and 27 megasecond. So adding that extra mesh point part the way between our dead spot, if you like, or our weakest signal and our best signal gives us the best coverage we can get.
So hopefully that was useful to see what actually happens when you put a mesh unit part the way out to where you get fairly bad performance. And we were able to significantly increase the performance that we got just by having that mesh point part the way there. So we've done this with the Cudy AX3000s, the M3000 model, the 3-pack. So hopefully you found that really useful. I'm just going to do one last test, and we're just going to test that AC1200. So that's the M1300 model, just to give you an idea of what type of performance you could get from a slightly slower device, and again, see how that performs. So again, following the same sequence that we did with the previous model, this has actually been used before, so I'm going to factory reset it first. So I just want to wait for this light to stop flashing so that we know it's fully boot, and then I'm going to actually give this a factory reset. Once I've given it a factory reset, we're going to add it to the app, just in the same way as we did before. Remember, we're going to use the codes that are on the bottom of the device. So that's now started up. So let's just hold the reset in there for about 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that should now be starting. And what we're going to need then in our app is just the settings that are on the bottom of that device. So let's just put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. So we're just going to go back and need to join that Wi-Fi. So let's just get ourselves up and running. So we're just waiting for a network that comes up by default called Cudy, exactly the same as we did before. Will take 2 or 3 minutes for it to start. and then we should be able to join it. We'll do quickly the same as we did before, but I'll just go through it fairly speedily. There we go, here's the Cudy network joined, and we need a number from the bottom of here, 467. Hopefully that's right, let's just see. There we go, so we've now joined the Cudy Wi-Fi. So we now should be able to go and find our Cudy app, which is here. All right, it's moaning that we've not joined the Wi-Fi, but we have. We've joined a 5G one. I think that's probably okay. We will have to change it in a moment. So let's just go back to the Cudy app. Hopefully this will have now realized that we are on this one. It just won't have been able to connect to the previous. We can now see that we've got the M1300, which is this one here. Wants that admin password again. What mode do we want it in? This is the Wi-Fi router, DHCP. All right, we're going to have those two networks on there, which is fine. And we're just going to apply, just to make this super simple. We'll go back and just change the Wi-Fi name in a moment. We'll set that up how we had that before. Something like TTG 1200 is the one that we're going to join. So this is just waiting for it to restart and join the Wi-Fi in exactly the same way as we did before. So while we're waiting for that, I'm just going to plug in another one of those that needs to have a quick factory default. So I just need that one to boot up like as this one has. So we've joined that Wi-Fi here, and we may just keep it on this name just to make life a little bit easier. So let's just go back into the Cudy app. I do want to just make this one Wi-Fi name, and I really want that one Wi-Fi name to be that. So let's just join it, and I'm just going to paste this. You can obviously call this whatever you want. I'm just going to do this so my phone doesn't have to, I don't have to remember the password again. So that's just going to reset, and then we'll be on a combined. Remember, that's how I like to do it, but you can split out the networks if you want to. So we don't need the bottom of that. That unit's rebooting itself and getting itself ready now. This one's restarted. So I actually want to just factory default this. Okay, so that device now should be restarting. And in a moment, we're going to then pair these together, just like we did the previous, but obviously added quite a few of them. This time we're just going to do these two, just so I can show you the speed difference that we get with those slower numbers. Remember, these are AC 1200s, the other ones were AX 3000s. So our network has now started up, so I should now be able to join the network, and I should be able to go back to my Cudy app, which should be all happy for us. And now I've got that option on here to add another device. And so we're just going to give that a moment. Remember, it takes probably about 4 or 5 minutes. It takes a couple of minutes for the device to boot. Then it takes a couple more minutes to find it. Then it takes about 4 minutes for it to join. But you only have to do this once. So let's let that set those bits up, and then we can do some testing. All right, so we've just seen there that it's found the other unit. So we're just going to add that. And now it'll take about 2 or 3 more minutes for that to actually join and configure. So that's now actually joined and set up. So I can take this unit, and we're going to put that in a few moments down at the end where we had the previous one. And now we're going to do a test just with this device first, give you an idea of the speeds that we're going to get. Put my glasses on again so I can see what I'm doing. So let's go to our iPerf test. So right by the device, you can see this is the 1200. We're getting around about there, you can see 500 or 600 megasecond, which is actually pretty good speed. It's still faster maybe than your internet connection, so that's really good. So let's now go and do this through one concrete wall. So as we wander,
right, so I am 5 meters away in direct line of the mesh device through one concrete wall. So let's do a speed test. You can see we have dropped a small amount, maybe 100, 150 megabits a second, but still good at this distance, 5 meters. and what I would probably expect. If we start to now wander to that point at 10 meters through 3 concrete walls, then this is where we're going to start to see some impact of what's actually happening. So as you can see, it's now struggling a little bit to find a right speed that it wants to balance at. And we can see, if we just restart this, that we're probably not going to get more than about 20 or 25 megabits a second at the top. And that's what I would expect from this device. 10 meters, 3 concrete walls. And that's why we really want to put another mesh device here if we want to extend.
So we can see that the faster the speed the device is, the often the better, longer coverage that we get as well. So what we're now going to do is we're going to take the second one of these and we're going to place it at that same point again at about 10 meters through 3 concrete walls, and we're just going to see how the signal improves doing it that way round.
So you can see the device is back out here on the top of the fireplace. It's got a pretty good connection with a white light there back to the master, if we call that mesh device. So let's fire up a speed test and let's see what speed that we can actually get here at 10 meters and 3 concrete walls. Remember, my phone is going to connect to this mesh point, not the one in the distance. So whereas before we were struggling to get higher than 20 megasecond, we're now getting 100, 140 megasecond, which is a great improvement of what we've got. And whereas before we couldn't go out to 15 meters and 4 concrete walls, we can probably see that we would actually be going to try that. So let's wander out there and see what speed we can actually get at that distance. So let me just let my phone reset for a moment at this location and give another go. But you can see that it's sitting here at a fairly solid speed, once I restart this now, of 90, 96 megasecond. Remember, we couldn't even get 20 megasecond at 10 meters and 3 concrete walls. Now at this distance, using that second mesh point, it gives us the ability to cover those dead or black spots.
So hopefully that's helped maybe see the speed differences that you do get between a slower, something like an AC1200 and a faster AX3000. Doesn't matter which manufacturer it is, the principle is still the same, but hopefully it shows you that putting an additional mesh point somewhere between the dead spot or the spot that has poor performance and the place where it has good actually increases the performance across the whole part of your house. So adding more in a combination is going to give you the best solution that you are looking for, and that's the power of mesh like this, whether you do it with Cudy or another vendor. So hopefully this video has been helpful, has given you some information about setting up a mesh, how you could set it up using Cudy and do the configuration and everything yourself as well. Hopefully that's been useful. Head on over to our YouTube channel. Got plenty more videos on how-to guides. And if you're looking to purchase any of these, you can find these over on thetechgeeks.com.